The premiere was 1913, May 29th, Theatre du Champs-Élysées in Paris. And it provoked the greatest riot that any piece has ever experienced on its world premiere. And it was a great scandal, a scandal of success, Diaghilev called it. Success du scandale, I guess you say it in French. And so what was soon apparent to the musicians again was that although the language was very different and the rhythms were hard to count, it was very clear that they were working with a person who knew exactly what he was doing and knew what instruments can do and expected them to do their best to achieve the effects that he had written because they were within the realm of possibility. So I think you know the story. The noise started up fairly soon after the beginning, and people were whistling and catcalling and everything. You know, you hear that bassoon in that register. That's not where you hear a bassoon. And the horn comes in there, and you immediately have, uh-oh, C natural, C sharp. Stravinsky used to say it's very important that the horn and the bassoon player don't like each other in the orchestra. So that started, and of course a lot of the opening is woodwinds and filigree kinds of music with fluid, liquid colors with a fair amount of punctuation, but nothing like what happens at rehearsal 13, where the riot got into full gear, because this starts to happen. And this is, by the way, this is rehearsal 13. It's easy to remember. It's a good number for this. And so forth. There's a great story about that. Diaghilev, when he came over to hear the ballet played through on two pianos, Stravinsky always made arrangements for two pianos so that the ballet dancers could really learn the piece in classes with just two pianos covering the orchestra. He was very careful about that, and he always did it long before the first rehearsal. So he was playing that, and Diaghilev, at that point, according to Bob Kraft, who knew Stravinsky better than anyone, of course, Diaghilev is supposed to have tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Maestro, does that go on a long time like that?" Stravinsky, looking up at him, said, "Very long, my dear." And it is very long. That covers probably a full 10 or 12 minutes of the music either that does that or derives from that, a lot of its ideas. It's very well known that this is, of course, a wedding of two chords that should not go together. That's not an unusual chord, right? That sounds like something that would go, right? But of course, in Stravinsky, that's not going to happen. So you have that, and on the bottom you have this, which is E major, voiced with low intervals. So there's a fair amount of bite when you're down that low. He does score it beautifully. I always tell my students, ba-bom are in the cellos. Cellos have ba-bom, the basses have ba-bom. And when you score it that way, as opposed to maybe this way, or that way, or that way, it sounds absolutely fabulous the way he orchestrated it. It's called interlock, and he knew to do that, and he got a sound out of the orchestra that they, legend has it, they could hardly believe. They wanted to keep doing it because they thought it was so strange. Of course, that's a passage in 2, and most of the offbeats that we hear and are thrown by are based on the assumption that we're going bop, 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 bop. But I can never resist playing my friend Peter Schickley's interpretation of this. Well, that makes it into something else. And it's funny, as serious as this is and as demoniac as it is, there's some kind of a lighter humor inside the possibility of it. Stravinsky loved jokes and loved to be highly articulate in ways that would draw out a pun or a rhyme that you wouldn't expect. I don't know where the words come from, that bassoon solo. This is famous too. I'm not an English horn. This lies too high for me. Please try it on the flute.